afternoon. I'm Sara Elinson, partner at Ernst & Young and Fintech Strategy and Transactions Leader in the Americas. I'm here this afternoon with Jon Ziglar.
Hey, Sara, how are you?
Great to see you, Jon.
See you as well.
So Jon is CEO of ParkMobile, and our topic for the afternoon Hi, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Our topic for the afternoon is innovation is underway at ParkMobile because parking is just the starting point. So Jon, before we jump in, maybe you could just provide a quick introduction of yourself and describe ParkMobile.
Sure. Once again, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jon Ziglar. I'm CEO at ParkMobile. My background comes from payments and transaction processing, formerly at Elinson, and then Ceridian. I've been at ParkMobile for about 5 years. ParkMobile, for those that aren't familiar with it, we're the largest smart mobility provider in North America focused on personal vehicle. What most people know us for is you drive into any city almost in the US, park on street, and instead of paying the meter, you see a sign that says a zone code and enables you to pay for your parking on street using a mobile app, which is the ParkMobile app or any one of the 25 white labels that we also power. We really, though, are a smart mobility provider, enabling people and drivers to find and procure services for their car, parking, charging, and others throughout the United States. At present, we have 20 million users of our solution across the US, and we're available in over 450 cities, including 8 of the top 10 where we're the exclusive provider, and 45 of the top 100. So that's a little bit about us.
No, that's fantastic. So we laid out the sort of the theme of this about ParkMobile being much more than parking. Parking in and of itself is a big feat, but much more than parking and the payments thereof. Talk to me a little bit about sort of the role ParkMobile plays in mobility transactions overall, so extending beyond the car potentially.
Sure. So, and to be clear, we do right now 95% of what we do is parking. We started with the concept of how do we disrupt parking, both in terms of creating consumer convenience, but also digitizing payments that before had been primarily cash and coin. The reason we started with parking that is it was the oldest of the transactions that happen every day with driving, and the other is that it is the one transaction that is relevant to 100% of vehicle trips, vehicle journeys. When your vehicle goes into motion, the only thing you know is that it will in fact come to rest, and in a lot of cases you're gonna have to pay for that. But what we really view ourselves as, and what we really built, is the infrastructure and the rails to enable a driver to operate and transact within the ecosystem that's required for a vehicle. So we think about parking as a transaction that creates a payment. The same is now becoming true for charging, where I'm going to need to find a charging station and pay for it. There are transactions involved in accessing gated environments, with whether it be a garage or a stadium or others, that we actually enable the vehicle to do. And mind you, we enable the vehicle to do it either because the driver is doing it through their phone, or the vehicle as actually the driver themselves in an autonomous situation, and they are able to do that. And so what our platform really does is connect those vehicles and those drivers to those services. So parking, charging, cleaning, fueling, ultimately, as we see ourselves building out this network of services.
Got it. And a lot of time when we're talking about payments companies and payment technology companies, it's all about the integrations that you've got, or the integrations that you're enabling. How does that work in the ParkMobile situation?
Sure, it's a great question, and I do come from a merchant acquiring background, and as everyone knows in the fintech world, in merchant acquiring, it's a world of frenemies, essentially. I mean, you got to get along. One of our core values is we play well with everyone. And as part of that, one thing that we have that is the differentiator for us is that we integrate to everything in the mobility ecosystem. So we have direct integrations to 10 of the top processors. We integrate to every handheld enforcement device. Every gate type that you see at a garage, we integrate to it. Every license plate recognition software, all of these different data providers that are providing availability data, we integrate to those. Our goal is that we are really a connector of the payer and the service seeker to the service, and we don't want to necessarily compete on the fringe of that industry, because our goal is that we are agnostic. So our integrations are very deep, and we do them everywhere so that we're very easy to work with, and that when you plug into the ParkMobile network, you then have access to 20 million users, increasing 1 million every 60 days.
Got it. So you're effectively the rails for car.
Absolutely. I mean, our view is been and effectively, and if you go around the U.S. in most cities, if you start to look for it, you'll see this @P green bug. It's like behind me on the screen here. That ParkMobile accepted bug, our goal becomes the Visa or the MasterCard bug of mobility for personal vehicles, so that wherever I go, I see that bug and I say, wow, I have an app in my phone, be it ParkMobile, be it another white label, be it something that we're embedded into. But I know that because I see that @P bug, that I can use this app to now purchase those services and transact that way.
Got it. So important. As one of the trends we're seeing around mobility and mobility ecosystems is that you're seeing regional transit solutions, cross modes, cross jurisdictions, and the more you're plugged in and sort of facilitating all of that movement, the better for everyone.
Absolutely. It's, mobility in general is very complicated, and particularly as you get into things like transit. And one of the reasons that it's more complicated than others is that they're always run by governmental entities, right? And so the idea of an open platform is usually across states and across cities is not as well accepted right now. One of the things that we are consistently driving for is to enable that ParkMobile account to be able to be accepted everywhere. And so, we started with cities. So every city you go to where we have a client, you can use any one of our apps. And in fact, it's a requirement when we go and contract. And if the city wants a closed loop, we don't do it. But now stadiums, airports, everywhere you go, we want to make sure that ParkMobile account is going to enable you into those places. Because you're right, downloading another app or creating another registration or all of these things that create friction when all somebody wants to do is pay money for a service. And what we see is ultimately the providers of that service, transit authorities, parking authorities, venues, they're starting to realize, let's just make it easy for people to pay. Let's get cash out of there, right? Let's make it fast. And we hopefully are enabling that writ large.
So move payments into the background. I think we've seen that work somewhere before, so that's great. Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk about a world where autonomous vehicles are the norm, right? So today we have the starts of autonomous vehicles, and we start to see more and more of them coming onto the streets, but they're not overly prolific. So what does that world look like for ParkMobile, and what are you enabling there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the question we get a lot, from investors, especially, is, well, doesn't the autonomous vehicle put you out of business? Autonomous vehicles are going to keep driving around, and they don't need to park and all this. The answer is almost exactly the opposite. And we've been building our platform with a view towards enabling autonomous since the beginning. First of all, autonomous vehicles do in fact need to park. They absolutely need to come to rest, and they probably going to need to come to rest in a place that they need to pay for it. But most importantly, what we do is take physical transactions and move them into the cloud and digitize them. An autonomous vehicle has no ability to interact physically with the world anyway. If it parks on street, it cannot go and feed a meter. It has to be able to start its parking session on its own through the cloud. If it is going to get into a garage, it cannot put its window down and pull a ticket. If it's going to go to a charging station, it can't do all sorts of things to enable to make sure the charging station is free and then pay for that charging session. So there's all sorts of things around the autonomous vehicle that autonomous vehicles are going to need to be enabled to find, reserve in a lot of cases, and procure services that we through our network will then enable. And so right now in 2017, we integrated into BMW. So every BMW coming off the line for the last 3 years has had ParkMobile natively embedded in the head unit. Whereas if you connect your ParkMobile account to your BMW Connect to Drive account, when that car parks on street, it actually will pop up in the screen and say, do you want to start your parking? By the way, that car could right now start its own parking. It knows where it is. It knows the rules and rates that it needs to pay because our system holds them, and it knows it's in park. And so that is really what we're building for an autonomous world. It just happens to be that right now the transactions happen through this. Ultimately, whether this goes into the car and who pushes the button doesn't matter.
You raised a ludicrous image in my head where when we have the full autonomous vehicle and you have this vehicle that pulls up to the parking gate and the owner of the vehicle has to get out of the passenger side and come around and actually pull the ticket to do the parking transaction. That's certainly a world we're trying to avoid. It sounds like ParkMobile is sort of well thought about that well in advance. Can you talk about also, as it relates to autonomous, sort of the notion of the car as the payment engine or the payment mechanism? There's been a lot of sort of debate or discussion over whether the card as the form factor goes away. What's the role of the car as that payment mechanism?
Well, it's a great question. The car is the payment mechanism. The car is no different than a person, surfing online, right? I mean, there is obviously no card involved. Most likely the Visa or the Amex or the Diners Club or the, American Express rails are going to be somehow used to make that payment. And then the question is, how do you connect that service itself to those rails? And that's really where we come in. There's a lot of movement right now or desire, as we see, and we work with a lot of the OEMs, that the OEMs want to become a payments company. They want to control the payment, control the consumer, and where that falls out, remains to be seen. But the final payments themselves are still going to go over the same type of payments rails, and you're still going to have a merchant acquirer, and you still need an integration, to the service. What we essentially enable is, the connection from the acquirer to what today would be, a terminal at the point of sale. We're connecting into the gate or to the electric vehicle charging station or to the parking authority. We connect those pieces. But the car is a payment method. That's one that I don't understand too well. The car is just going to initiate a transaction on its own, and it's going to run over, I believe, normal rails. Maybe ultimately it'll pay with Bitcoin, but it's going to run in the same ways that most others do. It's just there isn't a card involved. There's just a 16-digit number associated with the account that runs over one of the major networks. Got it.
Ultimately, there's a wallet that's running through that's got the payment credentials behind it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there has to be.
Yeah. What do you think about sort of the progress that the OEMs have made around around payments and around automation of payments within the vehicle. Has that been impacted at all for the current situation that we're in terms of the innovation that we could expect along those lines?
Yeah, OEMs are working hard on it. They're focused. I think there's two things that OEMs are really focused on. And if you don't know a lot about the OEM auto manufacturing world, one thing that I had not appreciated is that, with the exception of Tesla, auto manufacturers don't know who bought their car. The dealer does. So auto manufacturers are very focused right now on trying to understand who the customer is, and that's why they're trying to sell online services and these data service pieces that go into the solution, because that's their connection to the buyer themselves, right? And before that, they never knew who it was. And then so the first focus is, how do we get that consumer information so I can sell them another car and I can communicate and I can upsell them? And the next is, then how do I monetize those payments themselves? I think that they're making a lot of progress. OEMs have a lot more challenges than any of us in technology have, right? They don't get to be wrong. They don't get to have 1 in a million cars not work like it's supposed to, right? Because people die. And so their development cycles are far, far slower. They have to think a lot about the UX. Am I going to create a distraction in the car? And so that does hinder them a lot in their ability to integrate these things at the pace that they're evolving. And so, I think it's still an open question as to whether, from a payments and transaction side and just a functionality side, whether the in-car integration wins or whether Apple CarPlay and Android Auto ultimately win. Right now, most OEMs have a lot of feature functionality in the dashboard. They don't have much payments. And that is kind of the holy grail for them. And they're sort of trying to figure out, how do we get there?
So speaking of data, that's the OEMs, they want to know who's buying their car, what their preferences are, why they bought it. The more that they can delight their customer, the better, right? And the more data they have to do that, they have a better chance of doing it. ParkMobile is sitting there with tons of data, some of which the OEMs may want and some of which may be irrelevant to them. But can you just talk a little bit about, Jon, your philosophy around data and your role in safekeeping that?
Sure. So, we have PII and payment information on, over 20 million people, and vehicle information on almost 40 million vehicles. And we don't get paid unless people use our service. We are 100% transaction fee, transaction-based revenue model. So if we lose the trust of the 20 million people out there using our app, we have literally lost our business. So we take data and privacy very seriously. We're a company that has a lot of data on a lot of things that would be very interesting to folks to be able to monetize on. We don't really use it for that. Ultimately, we could sell raw data to folks to use it to market and all that, but we don't believe that the benefit from that is even nearly worth the risk that we would pose to our business. Were that to get out, or were it to be thought that we were trying to use people's personal information and movement information for that purpose. So we use it for a couple of reasons. We use our data to see trends, see what's going on in cities and otherwise. Through COVID, we had something we published called the ParkMobile Index, where we could watch how is recovery coming. We kind of know who's a commuter. We kind of know who's not a commuter. Are they moving? Are they not? What areas of towns? What cities? And we had a lot of really, really neat insights out of that, and continue to get that and track the recovery. We use it to improve our experience, to make sure that people know that they can use ParkMobile and where they can use it. A lot of folks may not know that they can reserve parking at State Farm Arena or T-Mobile Arena for the Golden Knights game. So we make sure that we can let them know that, and then we do it to improve the product. We watch a lot. How do they use it? Where are they using it? What are they getting? What are they not getting? And so we use it for that. But we really don't sell data. We don't sell data at all, and we're very protective of it because we've been entrusted with it. And frankly, our business model is not one to get paid for data. Our business model is one to deliver a seamless, convenient experience to create efficiency for consumers. And if we do that well, we're going to do great. There's plenty of room to run just doing that alone.
So it's an interesting point, and it's I think not every young fintech, but many young fintechs sort of start out with, we're going to get data and we're going to monetize data, and that's going to be the oil that's going to allow us to run and do the other things that we want to do. So it's data first, and then wrapping something else around it in order to even just get the data.
Yep.
What do you say to an emerging fintech, a payments company or otherwise, to help enlighten or convince that there are other business models? How do you make the case for the other revenue models, and not necessarily going to data straight away?
Yeah. So, and I'm probably very much of a contrarian on this one. For instance, I say that we're a company with a lot of data. We're not a data company. To be a data company and to make a business in data, you have to make data useful. Raw data is, it's valuable, but it's what you do with it that creates value. And that's really heady stuff. That's PhDs and all this, churning, burning, and all that. So, I've been in a lot of companies where they talk about the value of the data. And the question is, well, what is the value? Can you sell it? Well, yeah, I can make a couple $100,000 if I sell the raw data. But to make it valuable, it's going to cost me $10 million to build the platform and the analytics and all that. So, so that's really how I view data in general. And if you want to be a data company, that is a business in and of itself. It's not a side business. It's not the one you start with so you can get to the real end of being a payments business. Being a data company is hard, and it takes a lot of investment. And you need to get a huge amount of data and then be able to make it presentable in a way that gives insights or creates decisions that others can't. So, like I said, I know data is the new oil, but it really is what modern technology and algorithms and speed of processing has enabled us to do with data. It's really the value ultimately. And so I guess what I would say is there's easier ways to make money than that. So
yeah, and make no mistake, you are using data and monetizing it just internally to make your product and your service better.
Absolutely. Look, the data we have, we enable our clients to see exactly what's going on historically, to benchmark against others within, in the country. Like, we give people tools to look at the data and make decisions, right? But that's we don't sell that. That's to our clients who we're getting paid by. And that's table stakes. We don't charge for that. We believe that is what makes us valuable to our clients. And our clients are the reasons that we have all the cities and the locations, and our locations and cities are why we have all of our consumers. So it's all part of the virtuous cycle that we need to provide to create value on both sides of this two-sided market.
Makes perfect sense. So we've got about a minute left, Jon. Maybe one sort of open-ended question for you, and that's, what are you most excited about for sort of the future of payments as it relates to ParkMobile?
Well, the thing that I'm most excited about is I really can't talk about. Coming out in Q1.
That was a test. It's
going to be big. I'm really, I guess what I'd say I'm most excited about, which is an odd thing, COVID has been horrific for so many people and families, and in many sectors of the economy. It's been hard on all of us. And our business, it was devastating in April and May, for sure. We were down 95%. That said, it would be difficult to write a script for something to happen that in the medium and long term would be better for a company like ours that stops people from touching physical meters on street and enables people to transact through the cloud on something they do every single day. And so, and for payments in general, contactless has just accelerated by 5 years its adoption. I mean, full stop. And there are new contactless industries now that would never probably have really ever gotten traction, like paying at the table using a QR code. That's been around forever, right? Never really got traction, and now suddenly it's the thing. I'm really excited about how the world has changed so fast and abruptly, and being able to find those opportunities where behavior has changed that has created opportunities for us. And I'll leave you one example is, people are changing how they travel now. They're moving away from mass transit and away from car sharing. And I think that lasts a while. Well, that creates an enormous opportunity for things like airport reservations and parking. People are going to want to park at the airport, on airport, because they don't want to get into a bus. And so suddenly there's an industry that was good for us, but wasn't a massive opportunity, that now is a huge opportunity, and it switched on a dime. And even if flights are down 50%, parking on airport will be at 100% of what it was pre-COVID as a result of this change. So I love looking for those opportunities and then figuring out how do we help. So
some lemonade for sure.
Yeah.
Jon, always a pleasure. It was great chatting with you today. Thank you for the insights.
Thanks, Sara. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, that was fantastic. I really appreciate Jon and Sara. I'm Brian Schmidt. I'm a senior manager with EY's Fintech consulting practice here in Atlanta, Georgia. We'd really like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. Personally, it was awesome to see two of our EY Entrepreneur of the Year award winners speaking this afternoon. Bunch of great content. I know I learned a ton. So thank you guys so much for joining. Rodrigo kicked this session off talking about all the amazing things we're doing in payments innovation within EY, within this space. So we certainly welcome you guys to say hello to us either in our LinkedIn profiles or within our virtual booth here at FinTech South. So thank you all again to all the panelists. Thank you to our moderators. It was fantastic content. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week, and say hello soon. Appreciate it and have a great night.